Okay, guys. I just want to thank you guys, first of all, for taking time out of your day to join me. I know you guys are logging in from all over the world, so for some of you, it's not morning. It is for me. Excuse me. So today we're going to talk about productivity in translation. Now, during the webinar, I'm going to be asking you guys some questions, so please do use this area to respond. I'm also going to have a Q&A after the presentation, so if you come up with any questions, I definitely want to hear them. I definitely want to answer them, but please hold off and ask them at the end of the presentation. Make a little note somewhere. If you do ask me a question during the presentation and I don't see it, please ask it again at the end. I'm not ignoring you, I promise. I do want to answer your question. I just want to make sure I keep the presentation moving. You know, I'm only one person and it's hard to focus on both. So also, in the unlikely event that you guys have any technical difficulties, please do try logging out and logging back in. This is going to fix the problem in most cases, and we do have a pretty full house today, so if for some reason you log out and you can't get back in, I did hit the record button. It's all being recorded, so I'm definitely going to email you guys that recording so you're not going to miss anything at all. All right, so now that we've taken care of the tech stuff, let me introduce myself really quickly. Some of you guys know me already. I see some familiar names from my Facebook group, and if you guys are not in my Facebook group, please definitely join. We have a good time in there, post a lot of cool stuff. You can join that at successbyrx.com/Facebook. So this is me at a presentation that I gave last year here in San Diego. My name is Janae Spry. I've been a French into English translator for over 10 years now, and I've been coaching as a productivity and performance coach for freelancers for just about 5 years. And I'm so excited to have just launched this year my successbyrx.com site, which is my online translator training and like my ongoing coaching program for freelancers. And it's been going amazing. Just had a huge influx of members, so it's just awesome, going really well. So I also want to let you guys know that if you stick around to the end of the webinar, I have 2 free special offers for you. So I really hope to talk to you about that then. So with that, let's get going talking about productivity. Enough of the admin stuff, right? All right. So first, let's talk about what productivity is. That makes like sense as a good place to start off, right? I think when most people think about productivity, they picture something like this, somebody just typing at the speed of light, just going super, super fast, just get done as much as you possibly can. Basically just going faster or rushing through a translation or a project. But it is not actually about rushing. What rushing does is it basically just produces poor quality, and it also increases your stress level. And that's not very useful for us as translators, right? So we also know that poor quality and even the best case scenario is basically going to end up losing you a client. And the worst case scenario, it could damage your reputation permanently or in a very long-term situation. In our industry, what we're really going off of is our reputation and our brand. So that is really terrible if that happens to us. So you might get away with it maybe like once, maybe even twice, but ultimately that is definitely going to come back to bite you. And I really want to stress this because a lot of freelancers, they come to me, think that productivity is just rushing, and all they need to do is rush through a translation. They're going to make more money per hour. And I just want you guys to, I can't stress this enough, that you cannot think about it that way. Ultimately, that is not a good long-term solution. So instead, it looks a little bit more like this. Now, if you look at these gray lines, you can kind of picture that like the time in your day, right? And these blue dots are the various things or tasks that you have to get done. So I think about it like all of these dots are like one job, and this is how you get there. So if you look at the before picture, you can see that that's a ton of time being spent, right? If you were to straighten that line out, it would be a lot longer than the gray lines we see in the bottom picture. So when we talk about productivity, it's basically just cutting out what you don't need and leaving what's left over, which is the stuff that's actually necessary for you to do. So you can see that that top person spent a ton more time getting from point A to point B than that bottom person did. So that brings me to this question. Let me ask you guys, what are you selling? I just want you to type your answer just straight in the chat box. just go right in the chat box and type what your answer is. If somebody asks you what you're selling, excuse me, what would you say? Okay, I have answers coming already. We have interpretations, translation, I have quality, translation and DTP services, time and expertise, experience and skills, good quality work, my time, okay, best translation available, yourself, time and skills, another communication, service, solutions, literary translation, awesome. All right, some of those are closer than others, and a lot of people say that we're selling something like translation, interpretation, or things like that. But we're actually not really selling translations or words. We're actually exchanging our time for money. And what I mean by that is that we can only produce so many translations or so many interpretations in a given day. So if you were actually selling translations, you might have a little bit more of like an agency model. You'd be outsourcing those to other people to do, and some of you may be outsourcing as well, but ultimately the idea is that if you have as much work as you can possibly take on, there's an actual limit to what that is, to what you can do. So it's not infinitely scalable. So time becomes your most precious resource, and wasting it is essentially just like throwing money out the window, lighting money on fire, whatever you want to think about it. So time is incredibly important. So let me ask you guys another question. Why do you think productivity is important except for just saving time? So we've already talked about, I think that's probably the most obvious solution, is that, you know, if you are more productive, you're going to save more time. So that's great. But tell me, beyond that, what does that mean, or what comes to mind in terms of why is productivity important? Okay, yeah, already some things coming in. All right, we could be doing something else. Spend time with friends. Yep. Time saved. Awesome. Okay. Have more time to translate. Yep. Very good. Okay. Work-life balance. Exactly. Another work-life balance. Cool. So yeah. So I would argue that it actually looks a little bit more like this. Relaxing at the beach, spending time with our family, our friends, all of that. But it also gives you more time to market yourself. And I know a lot of people end up in this position, especially if you're a little bit more advanced in the industry. What happens sometimes to us is that we end up totally swamped with work, and maybe it's not the exact type of work that we want, but we don't have any time to even market to new clients or different clients. So the only time you guys might have is the time to do the work that you're already getting. So it's super important to be organized and productive for that reason. You need the time to grow your business the way that you want to grow it. So you don't end up somewhere and just feel like you woke up one day and wonder how you got here, right? So this presentation is a lot more about the first one of these, making more money. I know a lot of people come to this presentation because they do want to make more money, but I want to be clear that the stuff that we're going to talk about today is going to be applicable no matter what your reason. If you're here because you're totally swamped with work and you're just like, oh my God, I just really want to be able to have a few hours, you know, during the day to myself, this presentation is still for you. So you're going to still learn a bunch of stuff. So before we go on though, I want to discuss really quickly what translation pays. So what would you guys say translation pays as a job? Now, as you're typing, I do just want to say that I'll be talking more about figures in the United States, but please feel free to throw out, you know, euros, pounds, or whatever currency is local to you or what currency you think in. So just tell me, what do you think the average translator makes? Okay, I have $50,000. I have $40,000. $20,000. Okay, I have 70,000. Okay. I have no idea, but I don't do much. All right, that works too. I have 60,000 US, 120 euros per 1,000 words. Okay, 50,000 dollars, I guess. See, Spain, try 2,000 euros. Is what she said. All right, anybody else? All right, cool. Okay, sorry, I have 3,000 euros a month. Less than average office pay, but it's more satisfying. All right, good to know. All right, guys. So I want to tell you something. Little story. I was putting together this presentation and for the first time, and I saw a post in a Facebook group that linked to an article, and that article said that translators made something like 49,000 US dollars a year on average. So I took major issue with this. I started kind of this argument and tons of comments. I accidentally kind of like took over the post, total accident. So as I'm doing this, I realized that it's actually a blog post. So I was like, all right, it's a blog post, it's someone's opinion, all right. So let me go check the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. And I found out that the person who posted it was actually right. According to those statistics, and I gave them to you guys here, and that was 320 is the mean annual wage. So I thought, all right, you know what? Probably they're accounting for like part-time translators as well, and that makes sense because a lot of us do, work part-time. Not everybody works full-time. So you see that number 2 right there? I clicked on it and I found out that this is actually calculated based on the hourly wage, and if you're working full-time, which is 2,080 hours a year, and if you guys don't want to do the math, that's okay, I actually did it for you. It's actually working every single day for 52 weeks a year and making $49,000. That's like no vacation, no nothing. And I thought, no, that cannot be right. It totally blew my mind. And this concept that this is what many people think is part of what motivated me to start coaching a few years ago. So I know you guys have probably seen this this meme before, but I thought it was super appropriate for the situation. I really believe, you guys, that if your skills are up to par, that you should be able to make in the 6 figures or the part-time equivalent, if you choose, as a translator. So I know some people might be thinking that I'm either working with like direct clients in order to do this, or maybe I'm charging 40 cents a word or something like that. And when I was at the last ATA conference, I even heard up to $1 a word. I mean, I have no idea if that was accurate or if somebody was just, talking, but I definitely really hope that people are out there charging $1 a word. That makes me feel awesome about our industry, but that's definitely not me. I make most of my money from agencies. I have occasional direct clients, but really not a significant portion of my income at all. And this is my Schedule C, showing a gross income of just under 110,000 US dollars for the year. And this is from the last year that I worked full-time as just a translator for agencies before I started including any coaching income. Not much point in talking to you guys about coaching income since that's not what you guys are going to be doing. So when I first put together this presentation, though, I thought, well, I better make sure that the numbers are current. So I kind of ran an experiment and focused on just translation for a month to see what I could do. And this is what happened. So this shows that I made just over 9,000 that month. So it's definitely possible charging standard agency rates to earn figures like this. So let's talk a bit more about how this is actually possible. All right, so let me start by asking you guys another question. What do you guys think is an appropriate number of words to translate in a given workday for most translators or for you personally? And if anybody here is familiar with CAT tools, I want to make sure to be clear that we're talking about new words. So I'm not saying like 100 new words and like 10,000 repetitions or something like that. We're talking about finished words, not a rough draft, all new words. What is a standard workday? Okay, so, and I also mean sustainably. So I'm not talking about like, you translate X number of words in a day and then like you have to take a week off because you're so tired. All right, we have 5,000 words. Oh, my chat jumped up. Hold on a second. Okay, 5,000. I have 2,500, 2,500, 2,500, up to 4,500 words. 2,000 on average. 2,500 words, 1,800 words per day. 2,500 words standard. 4,000, 1,000 to 1,500. 2,500 words average of 2,500 to 3,000 words per day with Dragon. Let's see, for me around 1,000, but I'm a newbie, around 2,000 to 2,500. Okay, cool. Very standard figures. All right, guys, so let me share with you my chart of my averages. So I've simplified this into low, medium, and high complexity. In the middle column, you guys can see my words per hour, and on the right is how much that works out to per hour. So if you guys are super quick at math, you're going to notice that my rate is different for each of these categories. So if you average everything out, though, it's around $140, and that gives me about a $40 swing to still pretty much clear my goal, which is to earn around $100 an hour. So let's talk a little bit about what complexity means. So you're seeing this chart, low, medium, and high complexity. What on earth does that mean? Okay, so my primary field of specialization is medical, biotech, pharma. So low complexity for me would be something that's written for patients, like an informed consent form, because these have to be written at a much lower grade level. And if you're not familiar with these, the purpose of them is to obtain consent from a patient to participate in a treatment or a clinical trial. So they have to be written in a way that ensures patients understand what they're signing, regardless of their education. So they still contain many medical terms because they still contain a lot of medical terms that you do have to research, because a lot of times we're talking about a clinical trial, so it's a new drug or molecule and how it affects the body, what systems it affects, what side effects can occur, all of these things. So it's not like as simple as maybe somebody just sending a letter or something like that, and it still does require research, but it would be like in Word format, so not a bunch of that. So again, I want to just reiterate one more time that I'm still talking about new words, so not talking about 200 new words and 1,800 repetitions or something like that. These are new, finished, proofread words. So then medium complexity would be something like a discharge letter with more technical terminology, but not highly specialized terminology, or maybe like a laboratory report in PDF format, but it's just minimal formatting, like maybe it's just a chart, simple chart, that's it. So high for me would be something like a surgical report, which for me is more difficult because it's often super specific about a given area where the surgery is being performed. Or maybe like a handwritten document that requires deciphering. So regardless of the complexity, I have an idea of how long that document is going to take me, and so I charge differently based on that, so that I can always maintain that same revenue goal. And later in the presentation, I'm going to talk to you guys about how you can step away from this presentation and get this same level of understanding in terms of projects and time for you and your business and your situation. So based on the numbers people were throwing out earlier, I know that some of you guys are probably looking at these numbers with, just totally shocked and wondering how this is possible. There's a lot of you guys are throwing out, 2,500 words per day, and I just threw out, 2,000 words per hour. And I know that that seems really crazy. So let me explain how this works. It's really about putting the right pieces of the puzzle together. And if you guys remember that image that we talked about earlier, I showed you the gray lines from the before and the gray lines with the after, and how the before has so much more time involved than the after to perform the same tasks. So it really is about putting these pieces together just right to make sure that that before turns into that after. So I want you guys to think about the fact that there are actually a lot of things that we do every day that do not require the skills of a professional translator to do them. So it's really important to understand where every single minute of our time is going, so we can make sure that we're making the most use of that time possible. So in order to be productive, we need the right skills, the right tools, and the right process. If anybody's taking notes, write this slide down. Tools, skills, process, super important. These are the keys to a successful business as a translator. Now, when I say skills, I think probably the first thing that comes to mind is language skills, right? Or translation skills, interpretation skills, etc., which is the thing that you're selling. Now, before everybody jumps in the chat, I know that I said earlier that we're not selling translation, we're selling time, and that is true, but we're switching gears a little bit to understand more of how to put these pieces together and understand what skills are involved. So bear with me a little bit. All right, next we have marketing skills. Now, marketing is basically how you're selling the first thing. In other words, how are you telling people about the thing that you're selling? And then the last one is what I call business, which is basically all of the operations of your business and making sure the accounting and bookkeeping is done, all of these things. So if any of this is broken, it is going to prevent you from achieving success as a translator. So if you think you can get by on one or two of these, I promise that it's going to be really hard for you to achieve true success if you don't have everything ironed out. You can be the most amazing translator anywhere in the whole entire world, but if you don't know how to tell anybody about it, in other words, you don't know how to market yourself, then basically you're going to end up being a super awesome translator by yourself in your room translating for free all day long, which is, maybe that makes you happy, I don't know, but you're definitely not going to be able to make a living from it because nobody knows you exist. And likewise, you could be an amazing translator and you're great at marketing yourself, you can tell everybody how amazing you are, but let's say you haven't sent an invoice in 6 months, well, you're also probably going to struggle in this business. It's probably going to be really hard for you. Now, on the other hand, you could be great at marketing yourself, great at managing your business, but you have poor translation or interpretation skills. See, then what's happening is that you're not actually backing up what you're promising your clients, which is, quality translation or interpretation. And you're also going to end up struggling if that's the case. So if you guys are sitting there listening to this presentation and you're already nodding your head like, oh man, like I have a few issues to work on, and you need help in a certain area, there are lots of ways to get help or fix these issues. And I want to stress that a lot. There's some great books, business marketing books available on the market. And remember that you're running a business. So read business books. You never know what book you're going to read that's going to change your mind or give you a tip that's really going to make a big difference for you. You have to learn how to sell yourself and how to manage that whole process. And running a business takes a lot of trial and error. I work as a coach, but just because something works for like 80% of my clients, that doesn't guarantee it's going to work for you. And likewise, just because you read something in a book, it doesn't mean that that's going to necessarily work for you. So you do still have to keep track of what you've tried and what worked and didn't work, so you can always be improving. Tracking things is super important. Now the other one that we talked about is tools, or that I mentioned as tools. So the first one is pretty obvious, right? I think most people think of a computer when they hear tools related to translation. And I think it's really easy to actually let your computer and equipment get out of date, thinking like, it's fine. I mean, it's still working. Like, I can type on it. We're good. Even if it's actually limping along. Or even if you're not, have you ever replaced a pair of shoes and thought to yourself, oh my God, I had no idea how terrible my shoes had gotten until I bought new ones? I've heard the story from people who bought a new car or a new mattress or a new pillow. Your tools can be like that too. So make sure that you're always investing in regular updates. It is worth it. Sometimes we don't actually totally realize how bad the old thing is until we get the updated or the new version and realize how much better that new car or shoes or pillow or whatever else it is. You know what I mean? So I cannot tell you how many clients I've had, how many freelancer clients I've had that were working on the same computer that they had in like college, or what appears to me to be like many, many, many years ago. And if you are still using a computer, if you're a translator, we use our computers so hard, right? Like, we're all day on it. We're running lots of different programs. If you're like me, you're running programs like Dragon and CATtools as well. And it can be a big problem. It puts some wear and tear on your computer. So it could end up pretty slow. And even if you don't think it is, it could actually be slower than you think, right? Let's remember that we only have so many hours in a day. So we can't afford these slowdowns. Now, you guys are going to get tired of me saying this, but we as translators are businesses, and we have to invest in ourselves and our business, and sometimes that involves upgrading our equipment. So another important tool that we as translators need to think about is software. Now, it could be a key resource for improving our productivity. I know a lot of people shy away from CATtools, and if you're not familiar with those, it stands for Computer Assisted Translation Tools. Some examples of those are listed right here on your screen, WordFast, Studio, MemoQ, just some few examples. I know some clients tell me that they use these tools because they work for an agency or a client and they require them to use it, but they don't really see the purpose. Like they don't see why they would actually help anybody except the agency, right? That they wouldn't really help the freelancer improve productivity. And all that's really telling me is that if you feel that way, that really just tells me that you haven't learned how to use it from the perspective of the translator and really how to leverage those CAT tools to be productive for you and not just your client. It's really about getting the most out of these tools. So if that's not something you feel like you know, it really is worth your time to start learning how to do that. Now, another tool that I want to mention is OCR, which is Optical Character Recognition. It's the second picture right there. And for any translators that work regularly with PDF files, and learning when to use this tool is so important. And if you've ever used it and been like, I don't know why people use this, learning when not to use it is probably equally as important. So it's very important to learn how to get the most out of this tool, but it can be a life changer. I use it all the time. And if you guys are curious about it, I wrote a blog post about it a while back that gives you some great information on different ways that you can use this tool to improve your productivity. The one I use is called Abby Fine Reader. Now, the last software I want to talk to you guys about really quick is my favorite software for translators, not made for translators, in the entire world, and that is Dragon Dictation. And most people think this is only useful for, dictating translations, which is, don't get me wrong, it's definitely great. It saves my wrists, it saves my hands, but the best part about Dragon is the command feature, which can be used to automate everything from writing emails to navigating around a CAT tool or even applying multiple layers of formatting in Microsoft Word. So I also wrote a blog post about this, you guys, if you're interested in that, and I am giving an intro presentation to Dragon very soon, a webinar, so definitely make sure that you stay tuned. I will email you guys about that as soon as it's available to register for it. And let me just tell you that it can totally change your life. And I am not even being dramatic. Just as an example, I could say something like, play booked, and it will write an entire email for me that says something like, thank you for contacting me, but I am currently fully booked through such and such date, so on and so forth. So if you guys are intimidated by different types of software, there are tons of resources available for learning these tools. So look into them. You will not regret it. Check YouTube. Do not let yourself be intimidated away from these tools. There's even plenty of free information out there. Now, another really important thing to have is a really productive environment. And I laugh every time I do this presentation because I look at this guy and I'm like, yeah, I've actually never looked like that, probably for even like 1 second. But you get the idea, right? You want to make sure that you have everything, that you set yourself up physically for success, basically. Now, I have a lot of clients, and they tell me, I'm like, do you have a separate area in your house, to work? Like, yeah, of course I do. And when I ask them to describe it, they're like, well, I clear off the kitchen table, or I clear off the coffee table, or I've been to some of my clients' houses, and there's like, their pets are chasing each other, and like a bunny pops out from nowhere. It's like craziness over there. And I'm like, this is not a productive environment, and it really is affecting you, whether you think you can work in that type of environment or not. I guarantee you that would be far more effective if you didn't have all of this craziness going on. You have to have at least a corner or an area, even if you guys don't have a door to shut. And let people know, if you have a big family, that your office is your office space, and remind them that you are running a business from that area. You have to remember that if you don't take yourself seriously, neither will anyone else. Tell your kids that when you're at work, you are at work. Maybe tell them, only bother you if the house is like burning down. It is really crucial to create a productive environment for yourself if you guys want to get the most out of your time spent working. Because that's really the idea, right? If you're going to spend time working, then you might as well make it count, because then you can spend quality time with your kids, with whoever, later when you're not focused on the work. All right, now, if you guys are playing on Facebook, you're away getting coffee, whatever it is you're doing, please come on back, focus, put it away, because this is probably the most important part of this entire presentation. So seriously, if you're playing a game, if you're checking your email, set it down just for a minute, please. It's so, so, so important. All right, so process. For any given task that you guys are about to do in your day, the first thing that you just start off by doing is ask yourself, can I eliminate this? So to give you an example, I had an agency a while back that was sending probably like 100 invoices every single month. And I finally reached out to them and I was like, hey, would it be okay if I sent like one monthly invoice or something like that and kind of put everything on there? And they were so excited and I was so excited because they had less paperwork to do and I had less work to do and it was great for everybody. And just like that, I eliminated basically 99 other invoices that I had to process. It was great for them, great for me, right? So you never know if you just start thinking about ways that you can eliminate things. Now, of course, sometimes you can't eliminate it. So the next step is to ask yourself, is there a way for me to automate this? I'm a firm believer that if you do something more than about 3 times, you probably need some kind of system, template, something to handle that thing because it's probably going to occur again. So just as an example, I'm sure all of you guys get asked your rates all the time. So if you do, have email templates that are ready to go. You can even load these templates into your dictation software if you use it, like I mentioned before when I gave you guys the example of the Playbook. You can also use email template programs. There are plugins for Gmail. You can use them in Outlook. So great way to automate. Out-of-office emails are another awesome way to automate. I include as much information as possible, and that can really save you time, especially when you're working with people in different time zones. I put my availability in there, or when I'll be available next if I'm booked, and so that way, if they contact me at like 2 in the morning my time, they don't have to wait another 8 hours or whatever it is to find out if I'm booked. I actually have a availability calendar a link to my availability calendar in my out of office, so they actually know how many days I'm available, my rough general availability, all of that. So they really love it because they're not waiting for an answer. And especially I live in California, so it's a 9-hour time difference to Europe. So it's really important. Now the last thing, if you can't eliminate it, you can't automate it, next thing to ask yourself is, can I outsource it? Now let me just give you guys a quick disclaimer here. If you're in a position of spending most of your time looking for work and you're not in a position of being swamped with work, it's probably not a good idea to do something like hire a bookkeeper and then spend all day watching reruns of your favorite TV show. That is not a good business decision. What I'm talking about is sit down and evaluate how much you make per hour when you're translating and how much you'd be paying. So I'm in the position now where it makes sense to outsource a lot of things. I have a bookkeeper, which was one of the best decisions I ever made. Oh my God, it was amazing. Saved me so much time. I outsource laundry, drop it off. I drop off my laundry, and I know that might seem silly, because especially if you work from home. But if you're a translator, you know what it's like to be in the zone, right? You're focused, you're in the zone, you're translating, you're going, things are good. Now, if you're translating and you're in the zone and then you stop to do the laundry and come back, it takes time to get back into that zone. So to me, it's definitely worth it to pay someone to not have to lose that time mentally having to go back and forth. It's just wasted time. And you guys, we've already talked about wasted time is wasted money, right? All right, so now I want to talk to you guys about what I like to call the time difference. Okay, oh sorry, I just saw in the chat that somebody said the sound cut out, so hopefully it's back on now. Okay. One more reminder, you guys, if you have questions, I definitely want to hear them, so please ask me at the end. Okay, so I want to talk to you guys about action steps that we can take. Super important. I want you guys to be able to walk away from this presentation and have some things that you can do. So if you guys have ever been on a diet or heard of anybody that's been on a diet, gone to a financial advisor, started a budget, anything along these lines, what is the first thing that that nutritionist or financial advisor or whatever is going to ask you? You come to them and you say, hey, I want to lose weight or get healthier, or, you know, I want help with my budget and figuring out like what I can do to fix that situation. What is the absolute first thing that they are going to ask you? Okay, I have do exercises, write a diary, habits, record. Exactly, you guys. So the first thing they're going to ask you is to keep track of what you're doing already. They're going to ask you to keep a log. You cannot figure out how to get from point A to point B if you have no idea where point A is. So it's the same thing for us. If we're going to improve our productivity, we have to do the exact same thing. Keep a log. So how do you do that? Well, you're going to get two timers. The first timer is a project timer, and you're going to use this one to time every single project. And when I say project, I don't mean the invoicing, emailing, every single aspect of the work, because that's not the purpose of this timer. Just the translation. So what you want to find out is how long does it take you to translate that type of material as opposed to a different type of material. And remember earlier when I showed you that table of complexity, I said, hey, later on, I'm going to talk about how you can make your own table and all of this. Well, this is the moment. So if that interests you, definitely take notes here. Okay, so this is going to allow you to start categorizing your projects, a lot like I talked about earlier when I had the low, medium, and high. Now, when you first start with this exercise, you're probably going to have more like 10 or 20 categories. They're going to be really detailed, especially if you don't really have an idea already of what types of things are similar to other types of things. But as you keep going with the timer, you're going to start realizing that Category 1 and Category 5 take roughly the same amount of time, and you can combine them into one. And then maybe Category 4 and Category 3 take the same amount of time, so they can be combined, and so on, all the way until you get down to hopefully around 3. You really want to try to narrow it down. So working off of averages is the key here. It's going to allow you to set your rates accurately and really understand where your time and money is going. Now, the second timer is the work timer. And you're going to clock in and clock out just like a regular job. And the key here is to find out if you're wasting any time or if there's any way that you can like trim time off somewhere. Think about this like a regular job. So what that means is, no, you don't need to clock out to go to the bathroom or update your Facebook status, because you wouldn't have to clock out in an office if you wanted to do that. But let's say, you know, we're freelancers, so let's say we decide to go to the grocery store or walk the dog. Then, okay, yes, you need to clock out, because you would need to do that if you worked in a regular job. So ideally, if you take your total work timer time and then subtract from that your project timers all added together, there should be very little time left, because the time left is what you're spending on the work that's not generating you revenue. So in other words, invoicing, file prepping, marketing, all of this. So hopefully you're not working too much for free. And of course, that is what we're doing when we're invoicing and all of this, because we're not actually getting paid for that time. It's just part of doing business. But sometimes, just sometimes, other things can sneak in there, like, let me just check Facebook, and then all of a sudden you're watching cat videos on YouTube or Instagram or Candy Crush or whatever you like to do to waste time. Those things can get in the way too, and this timer diet is going to help you figure that out. So I get asked all the time at this point what kind of timer I use. So I don't use the work timer anymore, because I do have pretty good control over my day, but I do still use the project timer for a variety of reasons. For one, it allows me to see when my productivity drops too much. And that tells me that, hey, maybe I need to just step away for a while. Maybe I need to go for a walk or get out of the office. Or if I'm taking on a new type of job, this is what helps me figure out whether I should keep accepting those types of jobs. So I use Toggl. This is a snapshot of what that looks like. And now I don't time every single project anymore either. So you know, you'll see on Friday it looks like I worked for 40 minutes, and unfortunately, no, I did not work for 40 minutes. This is just an example. So I'm not sure how many of you guys have seen this movie, but if you haven't, it is hilarious if you've ever worked in an office. It's called Office Space. And in this scene, the main character is talking about basically pretending to work. So he says, I'd say in a given week, I probably only do about 15 minutes of real, actual work. So I ran this experiment with the timers I just told you about, and at around 7 a.m. I sent my first email. So in other words, I clocked in, began working at 7 a.m., and I sent my last project at 9 p.m. And I was sitting there, I was complaining to somebody, I was like, you know what, I just cannot keep working these 14-hour days. I mean, this is just, the struggle is so real. Like, I just cannot keep this up. So then I go and I look at my work timer. And what do you guys, just throw out what you think it said. How long do you think I actually worked for that day? So as I said, in my brain, I worked for 14 hours. Now, I knew I had gone and done a couple things during my workday, so I knew it wasn't exactly 14. Okay, I have 7, I have 6, 7, 7.5, 8, 5. Okay, cool. Oh, somebody threw out 3. Come on, guys. Although, I mean, you're not that far off. All right. It told me that I worked 9 hours. Now, that's not terrible, right, for a 14-hour day that I had taken off. But remember that mentally and physically, I really registered that 14 hours. I mean, I was really complaining about the 14 hours, and I thought it was going to be like 12 at least or something. So it's really important to realize that aspect too, that taking off those hours in the middle can cause your total hours worked to stretch and make you feel more tired. So now remember that I did also have a project timer. So, now we figured out that I thought I worked 14 hours. It turned out it was only 9. So when I added all those timers together, can you guys guess how many hours I was actually translating? In other words, how many hours out of the 9 was I actually generating revenue? So how long was I actually translating? Okay, I have 4, 6, 3, 3.5, 5, 6, 5, 6, 7, 4. So it was actually 4 and possibly less if my memory serves me. So let's go back to that 14-hour day. I was just as exhausted as if I had spent 14 hours in an office, but I'd only translated for 4. You guys, how crazy is that, right? Think about that. The difference between 4 and 14, really? So I started realizing there's a lot of room to fix this. There's a lot of time being spent on random things. I can really regain a lot of time if I actually look into where it's all going. And once you guys do this, you should find that you can really figure out where your time is going. So this is the first step into figuring that out. So for me, I looked into it and I felt like I was spending, or I figured out I was spending a significant amount of time doing things like invoicing and bookkeeping. So hiring that bookkeeper was huge for me. And she does in about 2 hours what it took me like an absolutely embarrassing number of hours to do. Now, before I move on to the next slide, I did see somebody ask if I could go back to the last slide, so I'm just going to do that really quick. So this is the screenshot for Toggl, so there you go. I will let you guys know that, again, this is being recorded though, so you can definitely watch the recording if you feel like you want to rewatch any aspects of this or catch back up, or if you feel like you missed anything. All right, so let's go on to the next slide. Now, having this level of understanding is going to allow you to generate more income if that is what you choose to do with it. So this is a picture of my actual schedule, and the green is my project calendar, so you can ignore the blue and the yellow. And you'll see that I took a rush job that weekend, but we're not counting that in what I'm talking about now. So the circles indicate a project that I'm going to talk about on the next slide. And I want to let you guys know, so this was a $3,000 week, and if you added those hours up, it's 27 hours. So as I said before, I work generally for agencies. So this is at agency rates, and this week is from the experimental month I did translating full-time in September last year. So now I want to draw your attention to the circled project. It's a 3806. So you can see that it's scheduled right now here for 4.5 hours. And this is what it looks like if you open up the Google Calendar there. It was 3,500 words and scheduled for 4.5 hours. That's an average of 777 words per hour. Now the actual time spent was 4.25 hours. So that means that my actual words per hour was 823. And again, we're talking about finished delivered words. We'll talk about words per hour. And you can also kind of get an idea of what the Google Calendar looks like. I won't go into detail about everything, but one of the things I do is I include the complexity level in the notes of my Google Calendar. And the reason I do that is because I want to make sure that I try not to put two like high complexity jobs next to each other. I try to put a high complexity job next to a low complexity job. And the reason for that is I'm often going to have the ability to make up time during that low complexity job if I need to. So it allows me to really eliminate my buffers. So, you know, as we schedule jobs, like we have to create some level of buffer in case the job goes over or something goes wrong. So it's really nice to list that complexity because it allows me to really reduce that buffer. I can't eliminate it completely, but it does allow me to greatly reduce it. All right, so we're about to start talking about like the planning phase, but I just want to do a quick recap of what we've talked about so far. And now you guys know that no matter whether you want to earn 6 figures or you want to stop working around the clock or maybe both, it is possible. And I also told you what the key aspects of a successful business are. Does anybody remember what those are? Just type it out in the chat. What are the 3 key aspects that you need to have a successful translation business? Does anybody know? Yep. Oh my gosh, I have like 1, 2, 3, 4 people who just all at the same time. Skills, tools, process. I love you guys. You guys are awesome. All right. I get so excited when people actually listen to what I'm saying. It's awesome. Skills, tools, process. Yes, everybody knew all 3. I feel like usually when I give this presentation, I get people that say like 1 or they say 2, but to see like 10, I don't know, I feel like it was like 15 people in a row within 1 minute have all 3. I'm very impressed. Nice job, guys. Okay, I'm sorry, I got distracted. All right, moving back. Okay, so we talked about the right skills and the right tools and the right process, and that you really need all 3 of those to work together in order to truly be as successful as you could be, right? So skills, tools, process. All right. We also talked about how crucial it is to have all of them functioning well and not just 1 or 2. You know, you can't just be an awesome translator and have a terrible computer and so on and so forth. So I also gave you guys some solid steps for how you can start using a timer right now, today, to see where your time is going. And as a result, if you're a beginner, that means that you should have an idea of how you're going to be able to optimize your efforts so you can spike new work opportunities, since that's probably your priority right now. Now, if you're super experienced, maybe you have a ton of work, so you have a new tool now, the timer, to start finding out why you might be working so much and maybe not earning what you want. So you can either spend more time doing what you want and basically increase your free time, or maybe you want to increase your income, right? So now you guys have that tool to get going. Okay, so I promise you guys will leave with a plan, and I also said that if you attended live, you'd get free gifts. So let me send you guys this handout. Okay. Here we go. Handouts. All right, let me know. Okay, it's 100% uploaded now. Let me know if you receive it. Did you guys get it? Let's see. Here we go. Okay. Yes, people are receiving it. Cool. All right. Good deal. So this is a planner, and this is going to help you kind of organize your thoughts and your plans. And as I discuss this planning process, I want you guys to just focus on getting a framework started, because it's going to take a lot of brainstorming to actually get details down and really go through this. So that's meant to kind of do like a little bit after the presentation. But as I'm talking, you know, feel free to jot down things if you'd like. And With that said, no matter what thoughts and ideas strike you, I want to tell you guys, jot it down, because don't like judge yourself. In other words, just go ahead and write it down. You can always cross it out, delete it, whatever later. So as we move into this planning phase, I want to start with this quote, which I absolutely love. If you're not going forward, you're not actually staying still, you're going backwards. And I love this because it's super important to remember that people will pass you by if you stand still. Your colleagues will pass you by. So never get complacent, because one day you might realize that your complacency has in fact sent you backwards in where you were trying to go. So that's so important to remember. And as we talked about earlier, and everybody listened, so I'm so excited, it's very important to have the right skills, the right tools, and the right process. So the first thing you're going to have to ask yourself is if any of these things are broken. So I'm going to put up a poll in just a second, and I'd like to know in that poll what you guys struggle with. I want you to be honest about yourself. Recognizing that there's an issue is the first step to finding a way to correct it. So as a reminder, skills involves the translation interpretation skills, but also having solid marketing skills and business skills. And then we talked about tools. That means having good equipment or hardware and being proficient in various software programs and setting up a productive environment. Now, process means being very organized, creating systems for everything from handling your workflow all the way to reaching out to new clients and managing those contacts. So if you struggle with any of these, I want you guys to let me know. Let me put this poll up here. Okay. And you can select more than one. So here we go. Okay, so the poll is up now. And like I said, you can select all three if you want. You can select one. So let's see. All right, so far we have around 40-ish% saying skills, around 20-ish% saying tools, and a whole lot of people, like everybody, saying process. Awesome. Okay. All right. People are still voting, so I'm going to keep it open for a little bit. You guys, this is pretty typical for translators. And most translators have issues with at least two, and if not all three, so don't feel bad at all. It doesn't have to be that way, though. So our final count is 41% for skills, 34% for tools, and 84% for process. So super typical for translators. So you guys are totally normal. That's the good news. And like I said, it doesn't have to be that way. And that's really what I want you guys to take away from this part of the presentation, is that when you move your plans forward, remember that you are not struggling with those things because you have some sort of like permanent personality defect that just is like anti-process or something. These are all learnable things, and they're all fixable things. So now that you've identified what's broken, start asking yourself, how do I fix it? And prioritize those things. Most of you probably have more than one of the keys listed as broken, right? Especially based on the percentages. So you have to prioritize them. The next thing I want you to do is craft a plan of attack based around your priorities. And that planner should be great for helping you guys do that. Do you need to learn to market yourself or improve your organization first? You have to prioritize. The next step is to set small, achievable goals within that plan once you've decided on that overall goal. And make sure those goals are actually quantifiable. So for example, if your priority is getting work, a goal like contact 10 new clients a week is small, achievable, and quantifiable. You also need to be accountable to those goals. So it's important to set up some way to actually be accountable to make sure that you're following through with your goals. So can anybody give me some examples of goals that are small and achievable and might be good for freelance translators? Let's see. Okay, I have contact 5 new clients a month. Cool, yep. Spend 20 minutes invoicing every day. Get 1 new client every month. Okay, great. These are great goals, But I do want to mention that it's important to, okay, I have a couple more in the chat. 1 blog post a week. Cool. All right. These are great goals, but I do want you to make sure that they're either within your control or at least made up of other goals that are within your control. So what I mean by that is, if you say get 1 new client, that's a difficult task to actually put on your to-do list, even though that's obviously the ultimate goal, and that's what you're reaching toward. You need other things that you can actually do, like what are you going to do to get a client? And those are the things that you're going to put on your to-do list. So including things like contact X, new potential clients, or creating a marketing plan, things like that. Those are the things that you want to focus on, things that you actually are completely within your control to achieve that other one. So some more examples might be words translated per day, dollars made per day, emails sent to potential clients per day, etc. Now, I don't totally love the words translated per day because of those variations in complexity that we talked about. But I do know that it's a good goal for some people, so I've included it, and it's not a bad one necessarily at all, of course. I do really like revenue goals and setting goals for contacting new clients if you're looking for work. If you're in the position right now of still spending most of your time looking for work, you should still be working full-time, guys. You have plenty to do between branding, marketing, contacting new clients, following up with those clients, not on vacation. Setting up a CRM, if you guys don't know what that is, it's a customer relationship management. You have to have all of these things in place. Sales is a full-time job. That is why people work full-time at sales. All right, how many people at this point are feeling a little overwhelmed by this presentation and all the stuff that you guys just learned that might be actually broken in your business that you're now going to have to walk away and start fixing? All right, we have tons of yeses coming through. I have all caps me, I have all caps yes. I have I'm feeling overwhelmed, me, yes. Okay, guys, don't worry, it's totally normal. You probably just discovered that you have a lot more to work on and work to do in a lot more areas than you actually thought to get where you really want to be. But you know what? That's okay. It's totally worth it. You guys are going to be able to do the work, and it's totally achievable. Like I said before, these are fixable, learnable things. The key here is that you actually have to be prepared to take action and do it. Nobody else can take action for you. That part is up to you. You have to have the motivation, the drive, the determination to take this seriously and get where you want to be. So you should have some thoughts by now of how to start planning, and we're almost at the point where I'm going to tell you guys the awesome stuff I promised you that you would get. And if you're watching the recording, I hope that you found this helpful as well. So before I tell you guys what you're going to get, if you are interested in getting help with any of the steps that we talked about today, if you feel like you're really struggling with anything, I did create a brand new type of coaching program that covers these things and so much more. I cover each and every one of those keys that I talked about earlier. I teach you how to market yourself and brand yourself, as well as how to write the perfect resume for you and a killer cover letter to go with it. There are videos and resume and cover letter templates, so you can just input your information and go. Save you guys time. I teach you tools including leveraging optical character recognition, Dragon, a computer-assisted translation tool, or if you struggle with prioritization organization, I cover that too. So you can be sure that the plans that you guys have started to make today, and when you start working through that worksheet, you can actually optimize those to really make your goals a reality. And the great thing is that you can pick what you want to learn. So if you have no interest in anything like OCR Dragon, no worries, you can totally just skip it completely. Or maybe you don't really need any help getting work, but you just feel like you're drowning in disorganization. Totally got you guys covered. At the end of the day, though, all the plans that we make and the information that we get, they're all well and good, but really at the end, it's about action. And I have the best of community of members I've seen anywhere. And I know, like, I see a few familiar names in the chat. I know some of the people are here right now. And thank you guys so much for making the community awesome. And Everyone is so supportive of each other, and I'm always there to support you too, no matter what you're struggling with. We have an accountability tracker every Monday. We call it the Monday Hustle Post, and people post their goal for the week that they choose so that everybody can support each other to actually make it happen. You can hold yourself and other people accountable. There's nothing better than seeing those goals checked off, right? I also hold a weekly 1-hour office hours session, so you can come and talk to me about whatever you're struggling with. So in other words, this is basically meant to be anything and everything I know in one place. And I add new content all the time, which means that it's not static. I've been successful as a freelancer, but you know what? Technology and business is always changing. And I think it's a mistake to just think that what worked for me is always going to work and that I shouldn't be continuing to learn as well and making sure to look for new ways to help you guys. So this content's not static. I'm always adding new information and changing things. So if I can possibly find a better way of doing something, I will add it. All right, guys, I just threw a ton of stuff at you. So if you have any questions, we're reaching that point, and I hope that you found this presentation useful. And if you have, some action items, and before you go, I do want to share with you the link to the, okay guys, I just sent you a link in the chat, and if you are watching this presentation, I want you guys to click on that right now and schedule your free coaching session. It's 25 minutes of free coaching, and that is a $100 value. I normally charge $100 for that, and all you have to do is click on that link and pick at least a minimum of three times, but you can pick up to, I don't even know how many, but you can pick several times. And just let me know kind of what you want to talk about, and I will schedule a free session with you guys so we can figure out how I can help you achieve success and help you figure out what is broken and how you're going to fix it. So with that, let me open up the floor to questions. Anybody have any questions? I know we had a few earlier that I missed. Okay, oh, I had one already. Do you think psychotherapy is a good thing to think about, or is it an overreaction about the overwhelming thing? Definitely not. I mean, there are a lot of people that get overwhelmed easily, and I think that psychotherapy could definitely help you with, especially if you have things like panic attacks or something like that, you know, like if you end up with a lot of work and you, and so you end up, sorry, I got distracted because I got another big question in the chat box. So if you struggle with something like panic attacks and overwhelm, then yes, I do think it's a really, really good idea to enter psychotherapy for sure. Okay, the coaching session costs $100, right? You guys, the coaching session is 100% free that I am giving you right now. So go to that link and schedule your time because it is completely free if you're attending this presentation. So definitely schedule that time right now. Now, if you've already had a coaching session, it is only, you know, one free session per person, but please feel free to definitely go and grab your spot right now because that's definitely something that will go quickly. Okay. I'm going to send that link one more time, you guys. Just click on that link to schedule your free session. Okay. I still can't quite wrap my head. Oh, I need to change the size of this. It's hard to see. Okay. I still can't quite wrap my head around how you are able to translate 2,000 words per hour for even for text with low complexity. I consider myself to be a rather fast translator, but I never made more than around 1,700 words on really easy stuff like fiction. No way I could do that stuff with no way I could do that with medical stuff, even patient's consent forms and such. I am a medical translator too. So how do you actually do it? Okay, so Suzanne, one of the things that I want to mention is that Dragon has been super helpful for me for increasing my speed, especially for low complexity documents. And I've learned how to leverage that technology quite a bit so I can talk pretty fast for whole entire paragraphs. And, you know, people talk at an average of, I think it's 160 words per minute. So even if you could talk faster than that, you could increase that. So if you calculate that out, I can't remember, I've done it before, but I feel like it's something like, you know, it's over 6,000 words per hour if you were just talking the entire time. So it's kind of about, so that's actually like a lot of leeway, right? Because I'm talking about 2,000, not just, certainly not 6,000. You definitely can't just talk for an hour straight. But yeah, Dragon has been super helpful for me. I do type very fast also, so it's not, I type over 100 words per minute. But Dragon has been a huge help, and also not just the dictation of the translations, but in doing things like I've done PDF consent forms, and I'm able to input things like the drug names or anything that are a little bit more complex to spell. I input those in Dragon ahead of time, and then I use placeholders like Bunny or something. And so when I'm using Dragon, I can actually just insert whole entire phrases that repeat or things like that pretty easily. How can I minimize the frustration from not getting job responses? I think one good idea is to really try to focus on systems. So I know it's hard, but try to take the emotion out of the whole, like if you apply and you aren't able to get a response. I think it's really, really important to remember that this is just a process. So for example, keep statistics like, for every 100 resumes I've sent out, I get 10 responses, so my response rate's at 10%. I want to try to increase that to 15%. What can I do to try to increase that? So try to focus on things as a system and try to take the emotion out of it as much as you can. But to be honest, no one enjoys not getting a response. Nobody. So, I mean, that's not totally going to go away completely. So I do want to take a pause and just thank everybody who has scheduled their free session already. So Audrey, thank you. Talia, thank you. Christopher, Kelly, Margarita, thank you guys so much for scheduling your free session. Really appreciate it. I'm just going to throw that link right back out in the chat one more time in case anybody is interested in scheduling their session and has not already. All right, let's see. Next question. Okay, you mentioned that you determine complexity prior to accepting a project and setting your rate with the client. 1, are agency clients okay with your changing rates? 2, how do you determine complexity before accepting and setting the rate? Okay, so by using the timer, I have an idea of general complexity for different types of projects. So for example, I know that an informed consent form is low complexity for me. So if I see an informed consent form, I know what that looks like. In terms of the changing rates, the way that I do it is I have a standard rate, which is my medium complexity, and then I charge a fee for high complexity, and I give a discount for low complexity. So I don't present it to them in a scale really the way that I presented it to you, because I think it'd be a little bit complicated. What do you do if you really get slowed down, like by something that's wrong or missing in the source text, and you have to wait for the client to get back to you? How does this affect your productivity? So I try to keep a running to-do list of other things I need to be doing, whether that's sending emails or just any other tasks I need to do. And so if I run into a situation where I can't continue, or another example that you might give is I'm the editor on a project and the translator's late, but I scheduled the project for that time. So what do I do for the time while I'm waiting for the job? I try to immediately have backup things I need to be doing so I can continue to be productive, even if even if those things are not necessarily making me money. I think it's really, really important to make sure that you are getting things done, because those are still things that you're going to have to do later, right? So you can make use of that time and not just sit there and watch the minutes go by. Can you give some advice on splitting time to work, can't stop making money, and working on marketing new clients, etc.? Different people are different. Some people prefer, like me personally, I would prefer to do all my translation as much as possible, like together, like just work straight and do all my translation, finish, and then spend, an hour or however long working on other things, like you said, like marketing and getting new clients. Other people are different. They can't focus for long periods of time, so they prefer to do things like translate for 30 minutes, do 15 minutes of marketing or 20 minutes of marketing or something like that, and then go back to translation. But no matter what way you choose, make sure that you plan it ahead of time. Like give yourself, okay, I'm going to translate for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, an hour, whatever it is, and then I'm going to do this other thing for 30 minutes, an hour, whatever that is. I think it's really, really important that you actually plan it ahead of time. so you don't end up kind of, you know, going down the rabbit hole, so to speak, in terms of actually like, you know, taking a 20-minute break to work on marketing, and now you've been on marketing for 3 hours and you still have a translation to finish. So make sure that you're scheduling and deciding things ahead of time. Okay, a few more people to thank here. I have Maurice, Natalie, thank you. Cecilia, thank you. Sarah, Melissa, Claudia, and Irina, I hope I said that right. Thank you guys so much for scheduling your free session. Really, really appreciate it. I'm going to throw that link out one more time. Okay. Somebody says business plan and keeping track, managing time between translation and the business management. Okay, actually I think that's a different person. I think that's basically the same question. So yeah, just make sure that you are planning your time ahead of time and that you're not just saying, oh, when I get tired of translating, I'll just take a break and, you know, work on this. Do not do that. Make sure that you're paying attention and you're actually scheduling that time ahead of time. Okay, trying to schedule a session, but I'll have to do it once I'm out of this chat room, Rosemary. Okay. How to fight procrastination during the day. So scheduling is the best way that I can think of possible. So just try to use a Google Calendar, tell yourself that from this time to this time you're working on that, and don't, you know, treat yourself a little bit like a kid. Like, don't let yourself say, well, I'm bored, I want to do something else. You have got to stay on top of it if you want to be successful. Remember that you have to make a decision to take action, and your action is going to be to learn how to prioritize and organize and all of this, okay? So that's really, really important. Do you suggest using an editor? If you're new to the business, absolutely. You know, when I first started, I had somebody else, and we worked together and edited each other's stuff. I use an editor when I work with direct clients, but not really, I don't do that with agencies, so that's my situation now. But yeah, if you feel like it's not going to hurt for sure. Other than the email template feature, do you think Dragon is useful for translators who have a very high typing speed? Yes, I do. For one thing, it just is easier on your body. And yeah, it's easier on your body, and if you type over 160 words per minute, I would be super, super shocked, because I mean that's how fast most people talk. So, Hani says, I do not have a mic, but I do have a question, please. Hani, please just throw it out in the chat. Thank you. No problem. Don't need a mic. Don't worry about it. I just want to thank one more person that I'm seeing coming through. Barbara, thank you so much for scheduling your free session. Really appreciate it. Let's see. Okay. Caroline. Can you give me some advice about payment methods? I work with an agency that pays me correctly after I send the project back, but I have a colleague that she usually asks people to pay her 50% of the total value once she starts working and the rest when she's done with the project. I'd like to know what you think about it. Yeah, so I do that with any sort of personal projects. So if I have a person contact me and they want me to translate their medical records, I require a 50% deposit up front. If it's a company, I usually don't worry too much about it, especially if it's like a larger company or something like that. And agencies, I just really research them a lot because most agencies are not going to be willing to do that in any case. Okay, Arasheli says, I would like to schedule a free session. Okay, here's the link another time. There you go, guys. Do click on that ASAP. So if you're interested, please schedule it right now. Patty, did you get it this time? She says, I'm trying to schedule a session, but I don't see the link that Janae is mentioning. Let's see. Okay. Should be right in the chat for you. Rosemary says, could you send confirmation that I have attended this session so I could use it as CPD? I actually don't have certificates available for my sessions, but most people have been successful for, I believe, ATA with using the GoToWebinar attendance. Let's see. In order to improve one's translation skills, do you think it is important to translate for free, for example, for ONGs or similar organizations? Is it important to translate for free? Not necessarily. I don't translate for free, but I did when I was when I was just out of college. I definitely did a few jobs for free. And if you're looking to get some feedback that you can give other clients, new clients, you definitely want to be able to you definitely want to be able to have references and feedback as soon as possible. So if you want to get that feedback, then what you would want to do is maybe do a couple projects for free in exchange for, hey, I want to be able to use that as a sample translation, and I also want, your feedback on the translation, and in exchange I'll do a translation for free. So, you could definitely do something like that. You said you send automated replies to clients in other time zones in the middle of the night. How do you manage this? How do you know which emails the automatic responses should be sent to? Do you set a new response every night or a recurring email for every night? I just use an out-of-office reply right through Gmail. It replies to every single email that I get, so it doesn't matter if it's a client or not a client. It just says, thank you for contacting me. Currently out of the office. I'll be back at, whatever, 9 a.m. the next day. If you're contacting me for a new project, blah, blah, blah. So it just says like that. So it's one out-of-office email and everybody gets it. Gmail has a vacation responder is what they call it, and then Outlook you can definitely do it. So pretty much any email program you're going to be able to do that. What do you think is most important to achieve a good reputation with your customers? I think quality, professionalism, and being responsive. So making sure that you're not, just you're not MIA and like missing for days at a time without reaching out or letting them know, things like that. When translators do that, they just like disappear off the face of the planet. Cecilia asks, when you translate, what is your method? Do you do your first draft with or without a dictionary? That's a good question. I don't do drafts. So what I mean by that is I try to make my translation perfect the first time, and I plan to do a cursory like proofreading second. So I used to do that when I started, and then I realized that it was actually much slower than just doing the research the first time that it comes up. The only time that I will go ahead and just move on or highlight the term is if, for example, it's like an acronym and I'm pretty sure that I'll be able to figure out what it means later on. I'm not going to spend 10 minutes looking for an acronym that's, might be clear to me in like the next 5 minutes. And then the other time is when, there's a word that seems a little bit weird in the context or something, and I think that with more information I'll be able to figure it out. So those are the only times that I just kind of consider it like a draft. But then I flag those so I know to really pay attention to those sentences on the second go. What do you think about those sites like Upwork or People Per Hour? Clients are looking for cheap translation rates, so I spend a lot of time bidding for jobs I hardly ever get. I feel like this is a time waster. I agree with you. I don't like those sites for professional translators. I think that it's better if you build a brand, build a marketing strategy, because your brand is really, really important. Build a sales funnel. And these are all aspects that I teach as part of my program, but that's my general advice is, figure out a way to build that brand and marketing strategy instead of spending your time replying to lowball offers. Okay, a few more people. Marcia, thank you so much. Emily, thank you so much. Alexandra, thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for signing up for your session. All right, send out that link one more time. How do you find archaic terminology that may not be present on the web? I do have a series of dictionaries, but this doesn't really come up that often for me in medical translation. I guess it does sometimes, but it's typically not that difficult for me. It's a lot of times they're still using Latin roots, and so by searching for parts of the word, I'm usually able to figure it out. But I do have a series of dictionaries, like actual paper dictionaries and reference materials too, that help. But I use that pretty rarely. Okay, anybody else have any other questions? Let's see, what time is it? 10:22, okay. All right, guys. I think we will, okay, one more question. Are you a Prose member, Prosy member? I am not a paid member. I am a free member. I do have a profile there. Okay, guys, thank you so much. I look forward to talking to everybody that signed up for a free session. Super excited to talk to you. I'm going to send that one more time in the chat before I sign off, in case anybody's still interested in scheduling one. And I hope to talk to you guys very soon. And I really hope that you have an awesome day and that you have an awesome weekend. And thank you guys for hanging out with me today. Have a good one.